everybody. Welcome again to the Halfmoon podcast with Charles and Patsy. I'm Charles, that's Patsy. So today we're going to do a slightly different kind of story, more of a Taiwanese folk tale than anything from the Taoist tradition, although it is actually pretty hard to separate these things. So this is maybe more along the lines of something more similar to a European fairy tale. But as with fairy tales, it still will have all kinds of symbols and knowledge encoded in it. And in a way, that's true of all stories, actually. No story is just a story. They have two levels, or probably more than two levels. One of them is the level that you tell a child. And then there's a more subtle level that perhaps neither the child nor even the adult has any clue about, that delivers other information. So Patsy, again, heard these stories as a child, growing up in Taiwan at a time that the Taiwan was rapidly modernizing when she was growing up in the 60s and 70s. But it's still the old culture, the pre-modern culture, was still very much alive. The older people there were born in a very traditional agrarian society. So these stories, they're not just tales about some far off land, but they encoded beliefs that were not too foreign to the older population. Things about, and I don't know what is actually going to be in the story Patsy told us today, but stories about ghosts and monsters and Taoist priests, miracle workers, spooky phenomenon. None of these were outside of the reality picture that especially the older generation had. So anyway, I don't know what Patsy's going to share with us today, but I wanted to kind of give that background. And one more thing, the stories were also woven into everyday life in a way that's hard to fathom in a modern society. There were street performances, puppet shows, and even in television and the movies, these stories would infiltrate into those media too. So yeah, Patsy, you were telling me about this. I'd never heard of it before or seen it when I was in Taiwan, which was starting in the 80s. But you were talking about one of the ways that children became familiar with these tales and the characters through, it's hard to translate, literally, niamianren is face pinching people. But apparently they were kind of like these sculptors that gave street performances. You want to tell us about like what that was like and how old were you? And
Yeah, I would. I'll be happy to, because those are very nostalgic topics. And there's a couple of points you also in your introduction, I thought that it would be good for me to make it, personalized to myself so that when audience were hearing it, they can hear it connecting to my
yeah, please,
direct
yeah.
experience. So when you mentioned about the tales weaving in everyday life, when I was a child, I couldn't differentiate tales and everyday life because tales was a very integral part of life. Like when I heard adults talking about gods and spirits, as children, we just imitate adults, like when we play house, we would make a mound of rice ball and put a stick on it as offering to spirit, and we'll play roles, and oftentimes the roles would include human roles that we observe and also a character from the tales. So when you talked about, tales being separate from everyday life, I didn't really know that, and I believe my friends when we were children couldn't really tell the differences until much later.
You weren't even sure if these were fictional or not. I mean, you didn't even have that separate category, really.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
it's life. That it's part of life. When you hear about ghosts and when adult warned you to not bring strange items home when you're out in the field playing. Don't bring those stuff home because those things could be evil spirit or ghosts transform themselves into some object to lure you to take them home with you. So just when you see attractive things on the floor, or even money or anything, just leave it alone. And because we don't want to bring in unwanting spirit. That's an example how, as a child, that I personally relate to tales. And of course, these sort of very cultural experiences probably vary from region to region. So if you read something somewhere different than something that I said, I just want to let you know that, I'm not a scholar and I don't do study and I don't talk from that place. I talk from my direct experience. So I'd like to
Yeah.
invite.
Patsy, what you were saying about the like picking up strange objects, that's really interesting because when I was in Taiwan,
Mm,
um, I was studying with a Taoist teacher,
mm.
and he said, um, "Do not bring antiques. Don't go out and buy antiques and bring them into your home, because those can have spirits attached to them."
Yes.
And I thought like that actually coincides with this gut instinct I have. There's like I don't want to bring that, antique, whatever it is, chair or something, because that was somebody else's. That's not mine. And I don't care if like they sold it and I bought it or whatever. It's completely dislocated from my own history. It wasn't my parents, it wasn't my grandparents, it wasn't a known thing, and if you see the world in a more animist way, where it's not just a world full of objects, but it's a world full of beings, then that instinct really makes sense. It's like a foreign object. It'd be like taking a foreign object and putting it in your body. Uh, like you just wouldn't do that, because it's personal, it's intimate. And I think that what you're saying about um, this instruction that your elders gave you in Taiwan, it kind of goes along with that, don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There
Yeah.
there are layers and layers of it. And yeah, it's really a curious subject to ponder and also certainly make my relationship with the things and endeavors around me more interesting. Like when you're talking about going to antique shop, I could probably say a lot about my personal experiences going to antique shop too. But we'll leave that for another time. Right.
Mm.
So because you were asking me about 捏面人. The other day I was also wondering the origin of 捏面人. So I look it up on the internet and I realized that it has an origin, but my direct experience exclude that. So I'm just going to talk about my experience as a child. My mother was a modern woman and she lived in Taipei, but most of my childhood I lived with my foster family and an illiterate woman, and we live in the village in a very rural area. And so there's no TV, no phone. Uh, and even radio is very rare, right? And so people entertain themselves by going to these street, like stage show, 野台戏, wild stage shows usually in front of temples. And that's where people gather. And you can always, well, not always, but frequently find a person with a little cart. And they will make some noise, and that noise will signify to children that, oh, 捏面人 is here. And what he does is that he has a lot of very colorful dough made from sweet rice flour or whatever flour. In fact, I researched it, realizing that it was sweet rice flour. But as a child, I just know it's some kinds of flour, and it's very colorful. And
Like kind of like Play-Doh, right?
yeah, kind of like
Yeah,
Play-Doh,
yeah.
but yeah, but a little bit different in texture. And that's their business. They make sculpture for kids and to inspire kids to ask for a certain sculpture. They would tell stories. And sometimes, they were just made up stories, but oftentimes would be stories that is more familiar to, the household, such as the story of gods, Guan Yin, Tu Digong, how they battle, um, demons, fair, beast, and then sometimes it would be I think one of the famous story that was retold is the Journey to the West, 西游
Mm.
记, especially during the Monkey King became the official protector and usher to the Tangshanzang is the monk before he took on that duty. Prior to that, he made a lot of rascals, and his journey from how he became conscious from a 石猴, how do you say that? 石猴, stone monkey?
Uh-huh.
Because
Yeah, yeah. So these are like these Journey to the West is one of these allegorical stories that kind of maps on to the process of spiritual development in humans. And Patsy also referenced Tu Gong, which is just literally translated kind of like the earth god. And in Taiwan, even to this day, people still maintain earth shrines, like little tiny ones even. They're all over the place, which is very, I don't know, I feel every time I see one, I feel like an upwelling of hope that this other way of seeing the world and experiencing the world has not been entirely lost, even in a high-tech society. I mean, Taiwan produces, most of the world's microchips. I mean, this is, no longer an agrarian backwater. Yet they still have shrines to the Tudikong. And like those don't stick around just out of nostalgia. There has to be some degree of actual belief for such things to be maintained. Yes, Sir Patsy, you were going to were you going to share a story that you was told by a Niamian or
I could, but those
you don't
are,
have to. We could just banter
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's so
okay,
fun to talk about your childhood and,
yeah.
get this firsthand window into
Mm.
another reality. But
Yeah, because as you're speaking, I was thinking about, I have a question. I was thinking about like, because I have this sort of blessing and privilege to be born in a society. Then at that time, I didn't really know how precious it was because I couldn't foresee the future. I couldn't see like, oh, 50, 60 years from now, that will be kind of gradually phased out or forgotten.
mhm.
Um, and that's why I use the word nostalgic. But the truth is, it's very integrated in my life. Like, for example, yesterday, because I've been looking for a dining room chair that is affordable and comfortable. But the comfortable one that meets my visual preferences, it's not affordable. So I spend a lot of time looking, and part of the place that I go look is like used furniture store. And yesterday, I ran into one. And it turns out I didn't really realize it at first. It looks like a very nice furniture store, and I and then after a while I realized that, oh, this is the estate acquisition. So
Mhm.
every piece of the furniture belonged to some deceased person, and that complete change how I feel into every piece of furniture. Um, so when you were talking about this, I thought, the Taoist teachers prompting you not to take things that belong to someone to home. I said that that is probably level one. And the level two is probably to really feel into uh, what is this piece of furniture carrying and what is that spirit communicating with you and how are you resonating with it and whether collaborating with this resonance will bring inspiration, or, in other words, to take on a reverence attitude. Because
Right. To understand that it's actually an intimate act,
yes.
which may not be a bad thing, but like it
Mm,
might even be similar to if you get a kidney transplant,
mm,
they have to check for compatibility first. They run all kinds of tests. So in a way, you're using your uh, psychic measuring apparatus, your higher senses uh, to test. Okay, is this chair or that and all that it carries with it, is this compatible with my own? I mean, because your home too isn't just a shell for that you live inside. It's an extension of yourself. So you are kind of performing some kind of organ transplant. And I think that I'm sure that the Taoist teacher would agree that it's not always bad, but that you shouldn't, oh, that looks nice, I'm just going to bring it in. You got to, take this seriously as a fairly intimate act.
yeah.
And it's part of a richness, because when you start to see the material world like that, in intimate and relational terms, then you're no longer alone in an impersonal universe. Everything's personal. That kind of brings me back to this childhood scene that you painted with street performers coming. I mean, this was not a big city. This was a small village. So culture was ubiquitous, and things were happening that involved your neighbors, and that there was an actual culture. There were things that people held in common locally. That people were not just having separate experiences through entertainment media in their separate homes. And I'm sure that the people at that time would have described themselves as very poor, but in a certain sense, they were very rich. And that kind of wealth almost doesn't exist today in the United States anyway.
Mm. Yeah, so is there a question for me to continue elaborate
No,
on?
I'm just, this is just kind of
Uh,
what came to mind, from your story of the chair.
mm.
Um, but
Yeah, so
yeah,
I do have a question for you.
oh yeah.
Yeah, the reason why I brought it up is, to describe how, how I relate to objects around me. The objects are no longer, its value is no longer just in its form and is like dollar value. Um, so my question to you is, like living in United States for a long time now, I'm trying to make sense because I could sense that many people would like to cultivate that type of more integrated a lifestyle.
Mhm.
So, but since there wasn't, most people in the West were brought up in a different way. How do you feel the gap?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no easy way to do that
Yeah,
because we don't have the social and cultural environment for that.
yeah. And I
I
think
mean,
this
there's
is
there
also,
are there are some habits of thought, and perception that we can change. Like, and one of the ways is through these stories. Actually, this is one of the reasons why I've been so enthusiastic to do this with you, because um, when people hear stories, for example, from your childhood, it awakens part of them that didn't even know what it was missing. And I think the same is true for the knowledge that the folk tales and myths that you tell us transmit. There's an awakening that happens
Mm,
because a lot of people in this society are so lonely and depressed and pessimistic about the future and paralyzed and addicted, and they don't, and maybe they have mental reasons to explain it, but then they're like, well, I'm better off than a starving child in Sudan, like, or I mean, I should be happy. I've got everything I need. Why am I unhappy? Well, it's because you don't have everything you need, but you don't even recognize what it is because our culture narrates wealth in a certain way. And when it describes what a human being needs to thrive, it leaves a lot of stuff out. So it's those things that are left out, we don't even know. A lot of times we don't even know what we're missing. We can't put our finger on it. So, you know, when we hear stories of other cultures and where people are actually wealthy in the sense of those things, sometimes there's a kind of a relief. It doesn't automatically bring you those things, but at least you know you're not crazy. And once you know what you're missing, then you're much more able to choose whatever way is available to bring that back into your life. So I think that these stories are very useful to people. They're useful to me anyway, to remind me I'm not crazy, you know. And as for the folk tales and myths, they also transmit some kind of knowledge that is absent in the manufactured culture of our time. You're not going to get that kind of nourishment from, watching Batman Part 8 or whatever, whatever recycled story is, in the movies. Yeah.
Yeah, and just couple of days ago, I stumbled upon some like Taiwanese radio channel, um, and and then it connects me to like a reel of some Taiwanese news stations, and it was interviewing a woman who's about my age, and she was talking about the temple in Tainan, a city in Tainan, a temple that worship 齐天大圣, that's the Monkey King,
Wow.
yeah, and so and she was talking about because the reporter shoot an image of the altar, so that wasn't just one Monkey King, there were many. Um,
Mhm.
so he was asking her, I thought these were gods, but they had a monkey face. And she said, oh, because these were the 齐天大圣, it's Monkey King. And there's the main one, the main statue came from China. It was rescued. Not rescue. It was somehow Qing. Like 请神明. So there's a ceremony to
Uh-huh.
bring. And so apparently that statue is like almost 1,000 years old because it's been
Wow.
in Taiwan for over 200 years. And then she was talking about how this 齐天大圣, the Monkey King, because the reporter asked, what do you pray to this Monkey King for? Because this reporter is a young person, and to his mind, that this Monkey King is a character of the tale, is not really like a god to be prayed to.
Right. Yeah, and the whole word God actually is very misleading
Yeah,
when we're speaking of these beings in these tales.
yeah.
They're maybe a bit more akin to Greek gods rather than the Christian God. But you could make an argument that even monotheistic Christian belief is not incompatible with Taoist folklore. I can make that argument anyway.
Can you? Hey, that's so intriguing. How it
Well,
connects.
I don't want to right now
Yeah.
because I'm just thinking of certain friends who would say, well, obviously this is all demonic, because there's only one God and everything else. And I just want to mention that there are other ways to look at things. Um, and I want to say, okay, I want to hear more about what the woman said, though. Like, why does she pray to the Monkey King?
Okay. Yeah. She said that the Monkey Kings can has 做了很大的功德, meaning that in his
They've accumulated great virtue.
yeah, great
They,
worship.
yeah.
And because of his work with getting the sutra and also his own development, he has the quality to chase away evil. Because
Mhm.
Monkey King's whole life is basically combating evil in order to protect the monk to get the sutra. And prior to him received that duty, he was one of the demon himself, keeping
Aha.
right.
Okay, so there's a lot of richness in this story. So for one thing, on a kind of superficial level, a critic might say, hold on a second, you're praying to this being that never actually existed because you think that he rendered such great services and accumulated so much positive virtue that just like in the stories, he's able to chase evil from your life. That seems pretty ridiculous. But actually, you do not have to believe that there was some historical monkey who accompanied a monk on a journey to the West in order to go to that temple, perform the rituals, make the prayers, and receive benefits. Because when something exists in a mythic realm, I mean, that doesn't mean that you could, doesn't mean that, I mean, it doesn't necessarily exist in history. It doesn't mean that it's a person in the sense that you and I are a person that you could actually, photograph or touch. But it's kind of, everybody's making a journey to the West. And if every single person's journey toward spiritual understanding, if you take a piece out of everybody's journey and put all those pieces together, maybe that's the Monkey King. So does it exist or not? Not the right question. The right question is, what are the effects of the practices, of going to that temple, of saying the prayers, of doing the devotions, of making the requests? And the religion that we call science, rational materialism, says that that woman is deluding herself. But when you go to Taiwan and you go to the temples and you talk to people all over the place and ask them about their experiences, people have extraordinary experiences that will blow your mind. And it is culturally arrogant to say, well, I know better than them. They're just deluding themselves. That didn't really happen. And if so, it was just coincidence, and I can explain it all. Oh, yeah, really? Is our culture so superior that we can dismiss the experience of another culture that is thousands of years older than ours? Like, are we so advanced? So, this is the humbling that I received when I went to Taiwan. I was given some experiences right off the bat that showed me that I didn't know everything, and that we, quote unquote, didn't know everything, and that my Yale education hadn't taught me everything about reality. Like some pretty, in my face experiences. So I was like, okay, I should be humble here. And instead of imposing my understanding of the world onto their beliefs, let me take them at face value. Let me enter their world and see how it grows my understanding. So anyway, sorry for that very long diversion, but I'm still curious if that woman said anything more about her devotional practice to the Monkey King.
She also, well, she actually became one of the temple priests. She helped tend the temple. That's why she was interviewed, and she also said that children, Monkey King really helped greatly with regulate children's emotion temple. If children misbehaving, Monkey King, making offering and pray here would really help parents with inviting Monkey King to help them help taking care of the children. Yeah, she actually literally uses the phrase to help taking care of the children. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So Yes.
In Taiwanese is 甲你斗带囡仔，甲你斗带
Hmm.
囡，甲你斗带，安尼就
Hmm.
免遮辛苦。Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes. Right. Help,
Yes.
yeah, help you take care of the children, literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a mother's helper, and so
And
you
share
won't have to.
your burden, share your shinku, your
Yeah, so you won't have to do so much yourself. And from that
yeah,
statement, it implies that this is so real in her
yeah,
belief system and
yeah,
in people who come to make offering and incense and prayers.
yeah,
And one of the Chinese Taoist way of becoming God is people believing in you. So those deities, yeah, maybe
you know,
God.
maybe don't say God, maybe say like ascended
Deities.
being.
Deity?
Or deity is just a synonym for God, but if you're talking about Xian, you know, it's really I would say a better translation would be an ascended being.
Ascended being.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or spiritualized being, you know.
Yeah, geez, that's another another English term that I have to learn to adapt.
Yes.
Yeah. Um,
And I don't know. I think for the purposes of our conversation, you could just say Xian.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Xian is also would be used like the English word fairy would be a type of a Xian,
Hmm.
perhaps. Um, or if you're talking about like the spirit of a river or a mountain or something, that could be a Xian.
How about shunt? Because the correct term for any any shen in the miao is called shen. And then
Yeah.
神有神旨，还有神明，
Yeah.
神明
So a shun would be closer to a god, I would say.
really? But how, no, no, 看得入神了. Shen is also in a person.
Shun is also spirit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the phrase Patsy just said, "kanda ru shun" means to be like absorbed in something that you're reading or watching.
Yeah.
Like ru means to enter, and shun is spirit.
Hmm.
Yeah. So and this is a whole other thing that maybe we can touch a little bit about in future conversations. Just the way that a lot of words in Chinese are a little bit more nebulous and have many associated meanings that mean different things in different contexts and point to a unity that is not apparent through English words. And every language is like that. Every language allows you to see and understand some things instantaneously and obviously that are opaque in another language. Yeah, but Patsy, did you have a story in mind, a folk tale to share that you said you did, and I'm very impatient to hear it,
Oh,
if it's still appropriate to share it.
yeah, I was gonna tell a tale. I was gonna tell a tale that one of these Niemian would tell, but I sort of kind of weaving into our conversation is about Mei Hou Wang. Do you know the origin of Monkey King?
Not really. I don't know actually the story very well of the Monkey King,
Okay,
but
so
this was one of the ones that the Niamian and the sculptors would tell then.
yeah, yeah.
And then they would like make the Monkey King and make all these different characters and then sell them to the kids
Yes,
afterwards.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He would first said that, hey, like whenever he comes, actually there are more than one. I don't remember seeing always the same one. And first of all, I also, looking back, I thought, what a great idea to conduct a livelihood for artists, right? Because there's a lot of struggling artists
Yeah.
in the world. So
And I just love the way how art is so integrated into life, whereas here there it's just sequestered away, usually in museums and galleries.
yeah, actually, near me, and then this when I look it up on the internet, it is actually a performing art now. It's no longer a
Right.
yeah.
No
There's
longer a
no place to go to make that offering. There's no villages anymore the way that we had it, and there's so many different type of entertainment media, computer
Yeah.
this type of entertaining and receiving story is sort of obsolete.
Yeah.
So the Nimian became an art of the past that they're
Yeah.
trying to preserve. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is where you learned about the Monkey King.
That's one of,
One.
that's one of the beginning that I heard Monkey King story because, like what, 5 years old, 6 years old, no TV, can't read. Of course, that's how you receive the story, right? But and then as I get older, the more and more complex version would present
Mhm.
itself in different places and time. Yeah, the first time definitely from the 捏面人.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you talked about the how and then you dramatize it, right? Like with
Mhm.
expression and sometimes scares kids, like loud noise. And one of the scene that was often described was after so the monkey was born out of a rock of tens of thousand years old rock and born of a monkey, and he's very, very beautiful and perfect monkey. And other monkeys saw him and saw how intelligent he was. Then they began to follow him and call him the 美猴王，美丽的美，猴
Yeah.
子的
The
猴。
beautiful Monkey King.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then so now he had this duty to take care of his monkey tribe. And one time they, as monkeys do, they were curious and naughty and explore places, and they come to the front of a huge waterfall. And apparently the waterfall behind the waterfall has a cave, so they were challenging each other to go through the the waterfall. And Monkey King was like, "Oh, not a problem for me." So he went in and then discovered this uh how do you say this word? It a paradise, a hidden paradise. Yes, a hidden paradise that
Mm.
is so resourceful, that has everything, all the fruit they ever want, and temperate climate and all. So he thought, oh, that's great. That could be our shelter. So he came out of the waterfall, uh, completely unhurt, perfect. And his monkey tribe felt even more convinced that he's the guy that we should follow. And surely he took all the monkeys into that Shui Lian Dong. And then now he began to live a life just like a royal king, right? Have everything and all the power in that hole. And then he thought that, hmm, someday I'll die. What happened if I died and I'll lose all these luxuries and power? I better go out and find a way to live forever. So he expressed his wish to his monkeys, and his monkeys admire him so much, say, "Oh yes, we want you to live forever because without you, we wouldn't know what to do." So they gather their resources together and put together a raft and load a lot of food, and then send the Monkey King down the stream into the sea to find teachers. And because Monkey King, he actually had a destiny. He's not an ordinary monkey. So very quickly, he met his destined teacher, and he learned 72变, like 72 ways of transforming yourself, and learn also ride the cloud. And then he acquired a name called Sun Wukong. Wukong is, yeah.
To awaken to emptiness.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And hoping that he will continue to cultivate and practice and send him back. But instead of continue to practice, he actually started to okay, first when he got back, he's Shui Liandong, he's, the whole.
Okay, so let me just recap so far, make sure I understand it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he's this perfect monkey and admired by all the other monkeys, and he leads a group of them all around to this. They find this waterfall with a cave behind it, and because the Monkey King is also the bravest monkey. He goes in through that waterfall, even though it looks really dangerous, and he discovers a paradise inside the cave, all these fruits. He comes back out, and leads all the other monkeys in there, and they're living it up. And he gets to be the king, and everyone's bringing him fruits, and feeding him the best fruits, and he's the king. But then it dawns on him that someday he'll die, and he won't be in this paradise anymore. So he goes forth to discover immortality, finds a teacher, learns the 72 transformations, and how to ride on the clouds. And I'm a little unclear then, why does he go back to the monkeys? Or what?
Oh, he's supposed to go back.
Okay, he's sent back.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And okay, yeah, so then what happens?
And then he went back and he discovered that his cave and his monkeys were disappear, and that the whole place was like vandalized. And so he followed the clue and discovered that there was a 牛魔王, the cow.
The cow devil or something, the cow.
Cow devil. Yeah, came to invade the space and rip the resources. And so he began to fight with Niu Mo Wang. So and then the Niemian would begin to describe the Niu Mo Wang's troop, and then people would just listen. And then of course the now looking back, I realized that a lot of the details were the Niemian kind of made it up along the way to and probably according to his inspiration, what he wants to make. So the kids will be like, "Oh, I want that character. I want that character." Yeah, and then the Niemian will make those characters for the kids.
Wow, so he would improvise also details that maybe are not in the original story.
Oh, yes, definitely. And even as I grew up, the first version I heard, I thought that was it. But when I started to hear different versions, I started to realize that, oh, some of those details, uh, uh, you can actually make it up because it's more fun.
Yeah. But there's something, interesting here about the process of improvisation. Even when you're improvising, sometimes a certain detail, you just know that it's right. It feels right, even if it's inconsistent with the last time you told it. But then there's another thing that you could say, but you're not going to say it because it's not really doesn't fit. It's not part of the story. So there's a living, like a beingness to stories that when you are immersed in that story, when it's colonized your consciousness, when you serve that story, then what to say comes to you. It's like the story is using you to tell it. And when the Niemianren did that, then the story was compelling. It brought you into the story too. So, it sounds to me that, he was a very talented, very good improviser. And that's not just a skill. Improvisation, there's something kind of mystical about it. You, in some sense, you're not imposing your ideas. When you try it that way, like, it doesn't work. You're not imposing your ideas onto the story. You're being an agent of the story. And this is actually a very Taoist concept. This is Wu Wei, one of the foundational principles of Taoism, where you can translate that as non-action, but that's not actually a good translation. It's more of kind of non-contrivance or non-imposition. It means following the way of things and acting in accordance with the way of things. And so improvisational storytelling is an example of that. And yeah, so I guess the reason I'm saying that is just because he was making it up doesn't mean that it wasn't an authentic folktale, because he was immersed in that folk culture and therefore able to serve as one of its mouthpieces.
Oh yes, that's a very good observation, Charles. It's very true. That's what I was trying to say. Because whatever this Niemian is the detail is adding is responding also both to his own creativity and the kid's energy
Mm,
that he's interacting. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm, yeah.
yeah.
And I also have remember one of the Niemian, like he was a all sad person. I just he didn't really say very much, and he just wanted to make up, hey, what do you want? You want to have guanshiying, or do you want a chicken, or do you want a horse? Or do you want,
Mhm.
just uh like he didn't want to tell story. I remember
Uh-huh.
that, it's like telling story isn't a requirement.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but I'm sure the ones who did tell stories did better business.
Yes, definitely.
How many kids would be surrounding one of these parts?
I don't know. It's like most of the whole pack.
Uh-huh.
Usually is a neighborhood of probably uh 20 household.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Mhm.
So there'd be a whole pack, 20 or 30 kids maybe running
Uh,
around.
yeah, yeah. It is the size varies because sometimes people don't hear that it's here or they are doing something else. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but
Right.
definitely a bunch.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another aspect of a rich culture, like, I mean, you're talking 5, 6-year-old kids, some of them, unsupervised.
Yes, actually
Yeah.
all the way from 2 years old to uh early middle school age. Yeah,
Mhm.
my cousin was like 2.5 and he would be running around with us.
Wow, what a rich childhood.
Yeah, and I was 5, that's the first time I remember like that's where my memory of my childhood starts around
Mhm.
5. Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, you know, I'm involved sometimes in conversations about artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
and people are talking about how it's going to replace more and more of what human beings do. Stories like yours are usually not part of the conversation uh, because no matter how good AI becomes, it's still you're sitting in front of a screen. It might be able to tell great stories. In fact, I've used it to I've played around with it. It can tell us some good stories, but but it cannot recreate the experience of running around with a bunch of other kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not digitizable, you know. And I think that as AI does take over more and more um, cognitive tasks, that the call toward the kinds of experiences you're describing will become stronger and stronger. So this is another reason why I'm so happy to bring these into public consciousness. Yeah. So what should we do now? We should we visit
Yeah.
visit
I,
some
I
of the images and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think all of our audiences is probably looking forward to you to lead a meditation
Okay.
and then we will have a discussion scheduled for
Yeah.
this, right? Later.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's funny. I mentioned in one of the newsletters that this format, which has a guided meditation, and someone said I almost closed the window as soon as I saw the words guided meditation. Um, and I get it. I usually get really annoyed with guided meditations. So I want to conceive this in a different way. Really, what we're doing is um, visiting some of the images together. And then, as I said, these stories are vehicles for knowledge. And so as I kind of go into a trance and immerse myself in the images, then it opens up a gateway for some of that knowledge to come through. And then I, with my voice, just keep us immersed in that for a little while so that we can receive the story on a deeper level, or not even a deeper level, another level, and nourish it. So yeah, if anyone's allergic to guided meditations, maybe that is helpful. And with that, close your eyes and find an uncomfortable position. Yeah, that's another thing. Like as soon as I'm speaking, and as soon as I say close your eyes, everybody like gets into meditation position, you know. And I'm like, weren't you comfortable before? So anyway, yeah, here we are together with my eyes are closed anyway. And I guess something of the monkey spirit is already present with us, the playful, naughty spirit, which sometimes gets left out of, quote, spirituality. But really, what is it about this thing that we are reaching for with spirituality, if not to be more fully alive? And that includes the play and the laughter. And here we are with that perfect monkey who is completely unapologetic about being the king and has no qualms of conscience about availing himself of all of the fruits and being served by the other monkeys. He likes being king a lot. He's delighted with the fruits of the earth. And there's no hint in the story that there's anything wrong with that. No condemnation for his indulgent ways. No. But at some point, it's not enough. He realizes that it's not permanent, that it can't just be this. And that's why he departs from the ease and comfort of his kingship in paradise. There's a longing for something, a longing for something that doesn't change, something that is reliable, something that is permanent, something that is at the essence of who we are. Something that persists through every change of circumstance, through every one of our 72 transformations. Who am I when I'm with my partner? Who am I when I'm with my child? Who am I when I'm with a different child? Who am I at a meeting on Zoom? Who am I standing in line? Where's the core? And so in this moment, we can pull inward. and experience for a few moments a kind of well-being, almost bliss of just existing. That's really immortality. Immortality isn't that you don't die, that you don't someday leave the garden, the paradise, that you preserve your body forever. Immortality is that part of you that does not die. And as the realization of that grows, then we take steps toward what they say in those tales as what they describe as a Taoist immortal. No longer are we dependent on the lavish banquet of fruits available in paradise. Nor do we repudiate those fruits. And so when we return to what had been paradise and discover ruin, we want to set things right. The Monkey King carries the memory of a paradise lost. And the fight against the cow demon. Really, it's not about an exchange of blows, although maybe in the story it is. But really, the fight is to hold on to the truth of the preciousness, to hold the memory. Patsy shared a type of preciousness, this childhood scene of a rich and colorful culture that most of us did not experience. But you did experience something else that could be lost or has been lost. And that because you hold that memory, could be restored in some form, because you know what is actually valuable. You know it in your bones. As an experience. Even if you had a terrible childhood, something touched your childhood that reminded you of what's possible, of what it's supposed to be like. This earth could be a paradise, just beyond the veil of that waterfall. It could be a paradise. It is only we who have made it otherwise. And so the Monkey King, not some separate God from ourselves, part of ourselves, magnificent, playful, brave, unashamed to enjoy the fruits of life. And aware that there is more to be found. Take a moment of gratitude for the invocation of the Monkey King within ourselves. And the aliveness of all of those qualities. and the inherent strength and determination that flows within you. And bring your eyes again open in a few moments. Please understand that I am not offering this as the correct interpretation of that part of the Monkey King story. I would not be so arrogant. There's so much in these stories. There's a whole vast body of scholarship in the Taoist tradition about the Monkey King. What I'm saying, though, is that it must not be dismissed as mere folk superstition. And the woman that Patsy saw interviewed on Taiwanese television must be respected. Maybe in the same way that we would respect a brilliant scientist or somebody running a homeless shelter, or any carrier of grace and compassion and wisdom. And I guess I'll leave you with a blessing, a well wish that you'll be touched very soon in another way with something that evokes your innate knowledge of the wealth available. And touches you with mystery. Yeah. Patsy, do you have anything you'd like to add before we close?
Oh, not to this particular one, no. But I have a feeling that we are going to resume from this point at some other time in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could probably have 5 years of podcasts just on the Monkey King. So, yeah, well, we'll see what.
Yeah, we'll make it more interesting by weaving other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll improvise.
Yeah. Cool. Well, really looking forward to hearing how people, this is one of the very early episodes of Halfmoon podcasts. So we're still experimenting and playing around and figuring it out, and everything's on the table. We are not wedded to this particular format, but every time we do it, I feel like I get more clarity on what we are actually doing. And so your feedback will also be valuable to help us clarify the vision. So I'm looking forward to that interaction. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm especially curious about your questions that you will bring up to our Q&A session.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Great. Well, thanks, Patsy. This
Thank
was
you.
fun again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.